Hi, it's Cara. I have literally rushed home from work to get some time to film this before Jessie gets home from work and wants to take over the lounge room. So I am in nice clothes, but I don't have a face and I'm breaking out all over the place, but who cares? Let's do it. Today we're filming my February wrap up and March TBR. I'm going to try and go through this as quickly as possible because I read 25 things in February. I say things because it was a huge month of short format things for me. So I read some novellas and a lot of graphic works, but let's get started. First off this month I read Caraval by Stephanie Garber, which was a little disappointing for me, mainly because it didn't deliver as much as I wanted it to. I remember this was originally marketed like something like The Night Circus. It's nothing really like The Night Circus, which would be forgivable if it was good. I mostly had problems with the plot and the characters, and even the prose was a little bit odd. I think I ended up giving this like a 2.5, 2.75, but I think I technically gave it a 3 on Goodreads. I didn't hate it, but there were so many things I was eye-rolling about. It was fine. Then I finished the audiobook for City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. I'm doing a reread of Cassandra Clare's Mortal Instrument series by audiobook, and I finished City of Ashes this month. It was good. I love City of Ashes. It was great. Then I read all 3 novellas from the Binti series by Nnedi Okorafor. That is Binti, Binti Home, and Binti Night Masquerade. Obviously I read these on my iPad. I adored these. These are science fiction, I guess, yeah, science fiction, African inspired, and actually directly situated in Africa. And it was amazing. I thought the cultures were done really well, including the planetary cultures, and the overall plot has such great growth. Binti was a great character to read from. A+, it was awesome. I think I gave the first one 5 stars and the second 2 4.5 stars each. They were great. Then I read volumes 1 and 2 of the Sandman graphic novels, comics by Neil Gaiman. I loved these in a kind of 4-star way, I guess. They're very dark. They follow the Sandman, or Sleep, and as he's been trapped for 100 years and is now breaking free and trying to regain his powers, I guess. This is a 10-book series, or 10 graphic novel series. I only read volumes 1 and 2 this month. I got them out from my library on the iPad, and I'm hopeful to read more in the future. Maybe not in March, but definitely in the future. I gave volume 1, I think, 5 stars, and volume 2, 4 stars from memory. Then I read the Iliad by Homer. This is a bind-up of the Iliad and the Odyssey, but I only read the Iliad. This was a classic. You should have heard of it. Following the fall of Troy, or the Trojan War, because it's not really the fall of Troy. It ends before the end of the war. And I enjoyed it, but it was dense, and I definitely broke it up. I read it over a week and a half with other stuff in between. I thought it hilarious, this chapter where he spends the whole chapter describing all the people in the army. I read it out loud to my mum and it was hilarious, though I think that would have been very boring trying to read on your own. But I really enjoyed it. I think if I hadn't have seen Troy the movie and read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, both which describe the same things, I might not have got as much out of it because it would have been harder for me to follow along. But having had that more modern prose, that I kind of knew the story, to be able to put that onto this was great. I really enjoyed it. And I'm going to read the Odyssey soon, but probably not in March, maybe in April. Then I read The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. This is not the sequel, but kind of a companion to Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. It's kind of set in the same world. And this follows Molly and her twin sister, Cassie. Cassie is thin and beautiful, and Molly's the chubby, feels like she stands out in a bad way kind of one. And it sounds a bit tropey, but actually reading it, it's not. Molly's a really great character to read from. She almost doesn't care about her weight, which I related to a lot. Her main obsession is that even concerns her weight is the idea that nobody will like her or fall in love with her, and that is unattainable for her, which I can 100% relate to. And her exploration into finding love in unexpected places was great. I absolutely adored this. I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars, though it feels like ages ago. When I'm filming this, February isn't even over yet. Then I read books 2 and 3 of the Wayward Children series, which is Down Among the Sticks and Bones and Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shauna Maguire. This series is great. I've done a full review on them, which is up on my channel. I will try and remember to link it below. These are novellas following a group of kids who have gone in through doors into other worlds and have now come back. It's amazing. 5 stars to both of these. Actually, I think this was a 4.5 just because I had a few little issues, which I talk about in my review. But overall, I loved these and I can't wait for more. Next, I read The Well of Ascension, which is book 2 of the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. This is a high fantasy, epic fantasy, following a world in which the bad guy in the big thing had won, kind of. And in the first book, we're dealing with that. Now we're on to the second book, so I won't spoil anything. I enjoyed this, but it was solidly only a 4-star read for me, and that was mostly redeemed by the ending. I found it dragged on a little bit, and I didn't really like our main character Vin or the main love interest Ellen. They were just tolerable, but the plot and the actual progress of the story is really enjoyable, if only it happened in a little bit more of a condensed frame. So I really enjoyed this, but it was a bit big. Then I read volumes 1, 2, and 3 of Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan. And does someone else work on this? Sharon Wilson and Fletcher. I love Saga, which I'll come to in a second. And so I thought this was going to be great, which it was. This is a sci-fi adventure story, kind of like Saga in that sense, and kind of like Stranger Things. It follows these 4 paper route girls that get caught up in this time-traveling alien adventure, and it's really, really enjoyable. All of these were like 5-star volumes. They were great. I loved them. Can't wait for the 4th one, which comes out sometime in March, so I'll definitely be reading that soon. Then I read Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart. This is E. Lockhart's newest release, and I'm not going to say anything more about that other than it's kind of a mystery, because you really need to go into E. Lockhart blind. I think it's the best way to do it, but I loved this. Okay, so the back says it's a thriller. Yeah, it's kind of a thriller. This was great. It flew by, but it is really short. Like, it's 260 pages. And I loved it. Definitely recommend it. I feel like I've heard way less hype about this one than I heard about We Were Liars, which came out last year or the year before, and everyone was raving about that. I didn't really hear many people talking about this, but it's great, so you should read it. Then I read This One Summer by Jillian and Mariko Tamaki, which is a graphic novel set in the on an island where these 2 girls who are around a similar age are going to the summer together with their separate families. And I enjoyed this. It was kind of like a 3.5, 4-star read. I really like the art style, but contemporary graphic novels aren't really hitting the spot for me that often. So this was less enjoyable, but was still really good. There's still so much more to go. Next, I read Masquerade by Terry Pratchett. This is the 17th something book in the Discworld universe. I love Discworld. I've read all the ones preceding this. I have a feeling I may have even read this before because it was vaguely familiar, but I hadn't read the one before it until recently, so I read it. And this one follows the witches, who are one of my faves, after death. They're so funny. And a masquerade, not even a masquerade, it's an opera. This takes place in the opera. It has a lot of tropes around Phantom of the Opera, and it's just so good. If you like Discworld, you'll like this, of course. But also, if you like comedy, fantasy, and sci-fi elements, you will like this. Then I read a couple of newest volumes in graphic novel series I've previously read. So first off, we have Saga Volume 8. This is the newest Saga volume. I really enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it more than the last couple of Saga volumes. It was really, really good. This is a not safe for work adult sci-fi graphic novel following these a guy and a girl from warring planets who fall in love and have a baby, and it is great. This was no exception. Then I read volume 6 of The Wicked and the Divine, which is Imperial Phase Part 2. I kind of wish I'd reread Imperial Phase Part 1 before reading this, because I read that like 6 months ago and I couldn't remember it with much detail, and this kind of really jumped right in, and I was pretty confused for a lot of it. It was enjoyable. The art style on these is gorgeous, but I was confused. This follows, and it's a confusing series to begin with. It takes a lot of mental energy to follow. So this is a graphic novel series following these teenagers, young adults, who are all reincarnations of a large pantheon of gods, and they are gods for 2 years and then they die. And this is that. There were some good plot twists in this particular volume that I greatly enjoyed. Then I started another graphic novel series, Monstrous, by Marjorie Liu and Sano Takeda. The art style in this one is gorgeous. This is a dark, I guess you'd call it like a grim dark fantasy. Is that the right term for this? It's a little bit steampunky, but very dark and gory. And follows this world where there are two races, the like humanoids and then like animals, but our main character is an animal but looks very human compared to some of the other animals. Like this little guy's very foxy. This currently has 2 volumes out. I'm waiting for volume 2 to come into my library, and then I'll be reading that. I really enjoyed this one, but it was a little bit longer and hard to get through than some of the other graphic novels I've been reading. So it's definitely like a 4 stars. Rather than a 5, but it was really good and really interesting. I'm interested to see where it goes from here, because I felt like this was very introductory. We're getting there. Next we have volumes 1 and 2 of Orange. This is the complete Orange by Ishiguro Takano, and obviously these are manga. I picked these up from the library on recommendation from Whitney Novels, and they're the first kind of manga that I've really enjoyed the premise of. I love this kind of anime, so this reminded me a lot of like Wolf Children and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time and Your Name, which are the kind of anime I love, that are kind of like sad and tragic and heart-wrenching, and this fit that bill. Basically all you need to know is our main character starts receiving letters from herself 10 years in the future to try and prevent one of their new friends' suicide. And it is good if the trigger warning for suicide, I guess. But it's not super graphic. I don't know. Yes, these were beautiful and amazing. I loved them both. Then I read The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I'm not going to go into too much detail for this because I will be filming a review for it very, very soon. I gave this a 4 stars, but that was primarily because of the end. Found the first 2/3 really dragged, and I was confused at times. But this is a kind of retelling from 1001 Nights. It's one of the stories from 1001 Nights retold and reimagined, and follows our main character Nari, who is a con woman with some magical powers that, even though she doesn't believe in magic, and then she accidentally summons a warrior jinn. They call themselves Deva, which I really like the sound of. And this is the first in a series. I'm really excited to see where this one goes, because the plot development in the last 50 pages was killer. I want to see where we're going from there. And then finally this month I read Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is a adult dystopian sci-fi. And the synopsis is kind of like the Hunger Games, but it's not the Hunger Games. We follow a main character, Darrow, who comes from the Reds, which are the lowest class. The class system's separated by colours, on Mars, and he's there digging underground to terraform Mars and make it habitable for humans. But then, after a small chain of events in the very first section of the book, he finds out that Mars is already inhabited and they're being essentially kept as slaves for everyone else on Mars. And plot goes on from there. There's a tournament element similar to the Hunger Games, but reads incredibly differently and really, really good. This was a 5 out of 5 star read. It was great. So those are all the things I read in February. Now, I didn't want to make a TBR video of its own, so I'm going to quickly talk to you about the things I plan to read in March. The book I am currently reading, but will not finish before the end of today, and it's the last day of February, is The Trials of Morrigan Crow, book 1 in the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. This is a young adult fantasy, a middle grade fantasy, and I'm really enjoying it so far. Very keen to keep going. Then we have The Fifth Season by M.K. Jemisin. I haven't hauled this yet, I don't think, but this is a diverse fantasy, and I really want to pick it up because it has a polyamorous triad, which I'm definitely keen to read about. I also really want to read The Tempest, which is the first play in this volume of the complete illustrated works of Shakespeare. I hope to get through this whole thing eventually, but I'm not going to rush it through. I'm kind of trying to like read one kind of classic from my big bind-ups. I have multiple big bind-ups floating around the house. And I'm hoping to read The Tempest because it's the first one in here and I've never read it before, but I've heard it's good. Then a couple of books that I have coming in the mail. In fact, I have some boxes that I'm going to unbox that it may be in or not, but I'll talk about them and just put up the picture for now. So first off, we have The Tiger's Daughter by Kay Arsenault Rivera. This is another diverse fantasy setting in a Mongolian style setting, following two women-loving women warriors, and I'm excited. And then also I have coming Truth Witch by Sarah Dennard, which is the start of a young adult fantasy series, which apparently has a great female-female friendship. I've heard amazing things about it, but I always thought the cover was a bit cheesy, so I never picked it up. But it's currently on its way to me. Then I really want to read Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo, which is the third and final book in the Grisha trilogy, so that I can then buy and read probably in April, Six of Crows. So hopefully I can get to this month, because I won't let myself buy Six of Crows till I finish this. And then finally, 2 new releases coming out in the middle of this month. First off, we have Obsidio by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is book 3 in the Illuminate files, which I have just here. I'm very excited about it. Comes out March 14th, I think. I'm going to be getting it basically straight away and probably inhale reading it. And then finally, hopefully, fingers crossed, I will get to Children of Blood and Bone by Tommy Adeyemi, which is also coming out 13th or 14th of March. This is a West African inspired fantasy young adult novel, and I'm so keen as a bean. It's getting a lot of hype now, and I'm down for it. You may have noticed I have significantly less books on my TBR than I have had in my last 2 wrap-ups, but I have just started back at work, and so I'm going to make an effort to make reading a healthy habit that I'm doing a bit of every day, but I definitely won't get to 25 things in March. So hopefully I'll get through those ones that I've mentioned, and maybe even some extras if I'm lucky. Hopefully a few extra graphic novels is probably the hope, because I have a few on loan coming from the library when they arrive. But otherwise, I will see you soon. Thanks for watching and seeing through this ginormously long video in which I talk way too fast and probably skim over way too much, but this was far too big. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video, which will be my February haul. Thank you. Bye.